Oh, this? Nothing. Should have seen the other guy.
Hello everyone, welcome to my first video in my Special Effects Basic series. I'm going to be doing bruises today. I'm going to be showing you guys how to do two different techniques in terms of making them. The first of which is going to be using the Skin Illustrator Glazing Gel, and the second of which is going to be the Skin Illustrator On-Set Alcohol Activated Paint Palette. Let's get started. So we're going to pick up one of these triangle makeup sponges, and you're just going to start picking up at the top part of it. You're going to pick off little bits and pieces until it looks something like this, where one of the edges is all bumpy and irregular, so we can apply the makeup with this to make a really cool pattern. So the first technique we're going to use is by using the Skin Illustrator Glazing Gels. We're going to be using black and blue, red, and yellow. So I personally think yellow is the most important color in a bruise because anatomically, if it were a real bruise over time, the pigments in the blood would break down into this yellowish color. So I start out with this glazing gel to create a really cool undertone effect to this bruise. Here I am going in with the sponge and applying the gel around where the natural bag of my inner eye is. It's important when doing special effects makeup to know how the body looks when injury occurs. In a black eye, gravity pulls down on the fluids from the bruising into the soft tissues under the eye, so following the natural bags of your eyes is the best bet to making a realistic black eye. So now, using the same method as before, I'm going to create a smaller and more precise bumpy sponge to apply the red glazing gel. At times, I forego the small sponge that I made and I just use my finger to pat out the gel and blend it into my skin. What's really cool about these glazing gels is that they kind of sink into the skin versus staying right on top of it, so it gives it a more realistic under the skin bruising look. After placing the gel on the inner corner and outer side of my eye, I begin to softly underline the immediate bag under my eye, which creates a sort of shadow effect to make the eye appear more swollen. I then use my finger to apply the black and blue glazing gel, and I do this right in the center of both of the bruises that I'm making. It's okay that if at first it goes on pretty dark, because you can blend out these glazing gels really easily. So using the red, I go up onto my nose a bit, back down in the inner corner of my eye, and again outside of my eye. When creating realistic bruises, it's all about layering, so I go back in with the yellow, red, and black and blue a couple of times, but it is very important to remember that every time you add another layer, only apply a little bit of product. If you're adding a ton of product every time, your bruise is going to look muddy and it's going to look like there's a lot of makeup just sitting on your face, which, in my opinion, does not look very realistic. And using some blood paste from the company Graftobian, I went in and created a split eyebrow and then also a split lip. You definitely don't have to do this, I just thought it would complete the look. So here is the black eye bruise. It is the first method using the glazing gels. I then went in with the glazing gels to show you guys how to create realistic bruises on the knuckles, because I've seen many attempts at this that just don't turn out looking like how knuckles would actually bruise in a fight. So I use the same method as before, starting with the yellow and then blending out each preceding color, but it's really important to note where I'm putting the gels this time. When knuckles bruise, they don't bruise directly onto the bones. Even though that's where the impact from a punch happens, the blood collects surrounding the area of impact, so I put the gel in between the knuckle bones and fading up and down the finger surrounding where the impact would be. This just ensures that your bruised knuckles will look super realistic, so you will definitely intimidate anybody who tries to cross you. Unless, of course, you have evidence that your bruises are in fact makeup. So now, creating another bumpy sponge, we're going to move on to the second method of bruising, which uses the Skin Illustrator On-Set palette and the 99% alcohol that is used to activate the paints. 97% doesn't work, 98% doesn't work, it's only 99, and this stuff is very harsh. And because we're doing a cheekbone bruise, be very careful not to get this alcohol near your eyes because the fumes may sting a little bit. Same idea as the knuckles, the blood from this bruise doesn't collect directly on the cheekbone, so the shape you kind of want to make is a triangle shape around the cheekbone with the top of it going up towards your temple lobe. So I started off with yellow once again, and then I went in with a bruise tone from the palette and also an aged blood reddish tone from the palette. And as you can see, I'm constantly switching between the bumpy sponge and my finger. That's because my finger is coated in some of the alcohol, and this kind of makes my finger serve the purpose of an eraser because I'm able to remove some of the paint if I don't like where I placed it with the sponge. I at this point thought that my bruise had too many orange and yellow hues, so I put a little bit of alcohol on my fingers and I wiped away some of the pigment. Be careful because this does dry out your skin a little bit more. And then I went back in with the paint from the palette called Bruise Tone because this has more purple undertones to it, so I wanted to make the bruise look overall less orange with this. I had finally gotten it to a color that I'd wanted, so I went in with my L'Oreal True Match face powder, and I have it in the shade W1, and I use this to go over bruises that I make with the alcohol activated paints because it makes it look more like they're under my skin rather than just sitting on top. So here are the two final bruise looks that I did for you guys, the first one being with the Skin Illustrator glazing gels on both the black eye and the knuckles, and the second one being with their alcohol activated paints. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and found it useful. Please stay tuned for the rest of my Special Effects Basic series, and I'll see you guys soon.